Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. Meta won't recommend political content on its platforms. The social media giant says the decision comes after years of consideration. U.S. senators pass a $95 billion aid package for Ukraine and Israel. The proposal is now in the hands of House of Representatives. A mother arrested for allegedly placing her baby in an oven instead of a crib by mistake. How did that happen? More details on this tragic case. Meta said they will stop recommending political content on Instagram and Threads by default. They said the move is an accumulation of years of refining their approach for people who want to see less of it. NTD's Jason Blair has the details.
Meta announced they're extending their policy on political content on their social media platforms. By default, political content won't show up in a user's feed from accounts they don't follow. They said in an announcement on Friday, quote, "We won't proactively recommend content about politics on recommendation services across Instagram and Threads. If you still want these posts recommended to you, you will have a control to see them." They posted a photo showing how political recommendations could be activated on Instagram. The post said similar controls will roll out on Facebook too at a later date. According to the announcement, if you choose to follow accounts that post political content, the new update won't change how you see their post. It only applies to content from accounts a user doesn't follow. Meta didn't go into detail on what they consider political content, but said it's, quote, "potentially related to things like laws, elections, or social topics." They also said professional accounts on Instagram can check to see if they are eligible to be recommended based on whether they posted political content recently by going to the account status page. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Now let's take a look at other top headlines. What could be the biggest snowstorm in 2 years? New York City and other parts of Northeast braced for a surge of snow today. A strong, fast-moving northeaster is knocking out power and disrupting travel in the region. More than 6 inches of snow was reported across the Northeast earlier today. Roughly 46 million people are under winter alerts. New York City public schools canceled in-person classes and switched to remote learning. Authorities are urging residents to work from home and avoid non-essential travel. According to PowerOutage.us, more than 40,000 properties in the Northeast were without power this morning. More power outages are possible in the region. According to FlightAware, over 1,000 flights are canceled nationwide today. More are in the New York and Boston area. The Senate early Tuesday passed an over $95 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan.
Today we witnessed one of the most historic and consequential bills to have ever passed the Senate.
The vote came after a small group of Republicans opposed to the $60 billion for Ukraine held the Senate floor through the night. Senator Josh Hawley reacted.
My goodness, we have enough money to make hundreds of millions of dollars of our taxpayer funds available to the private sector in Ukraine.
Hawley says such money will literally fund their businesses and banks and the pensions of Ukrainian government officials. The lawmaker says the U.S. Senate has left Middle America out in the cold.
Meanwhile, these same people turn to the citizens of Missouri and say, "You're not worth a dime." They say, "You can't have a penny."
Some senators warn of a hidden agenda in the Ukraine aid bill. Senator J.D. Vance says he sent a memo to all GOP colleagues saying there is an impeachment time bomb for a potential Donald Trump presidency buried in the bill's text.
So what happens if Donald Trump decides to force Ukraine to go to the negotiating table? What if he releases some of the money, but not all of the money? What if he decides to do what a president has to do, which is conduct diplomacy?
More than a dozen Republicans voted with almost all Democrats to pass the package 70-29. Those in support argue that abandoning Ukraine could embolden Russian President Vladimir Putin and threaten national security across the globe. The House will now review and vote on the proposed spending. Former President Trump looking to shake up the Republican National Committee. He's backing North Carolina Republican Party Chairman Michael Whatley to succeed Ronna McDaniel as RNC chair. And he endorsed his own daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, as co-chair. McDaniel offered to step down after the South Carolina primary after she met with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago residence earlier in the month. Trump is also tapping his senior presidential campaign advisors to manage the RNC's day-to-day operations. Republican presidential contender Nikki Haley criticized Trump's endorsements, saying he is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. She says under Trump and the current RNC leadership, Republicans lost the elections in 2018, 2020, and 2022. Manhunt continues after one person was killed and 5 others were injured in a shooting on a Bronx subway platform Monday afternoon. NYPD described it as an argument that exploded into a bout of deadly violence.
We don't believe this was a random shooting. We do not believe that this was an individual indiscriminately firing into a train or in a train station.
The police reported multiple 911 calls to respond to Mount Eden Station in the Bronx around 4:30 p.m. When they arrived, they found 6 people who were shot. One of the victims, a 34-year-old man, was later pronounced dead. The 5 other victims, ranging from 14 to 71 years old, are all in stable condition at various hospitals. No arrests have been made so far. Police say the incident started with a dispute between 2 groups of teenagers.
As the train pulled into the Mount Eden station, the doors opened up, and at least one of the individuals in that group, or in the 2 groups, took out a gun and fired shots.
Police say the shooter is still at large, but that there is no ongoing threat. A Missouri mother has been arrested for reportedly placing her infant in an oven instead of her crib by mistake. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the tragedy.
Mariah Thomas, 26, was taken into custody and was charged with first-degree endangering the welfare of a child, resulting in death. Officials stated they received a 911 call from Thomas's father Friday, who reported the child wasn't breathing. Upon arrival, officers found the child in a car seat near the front door. Responders observed the 1-month-old child with apparent burns. The baby was declared dead at the scene. According to court records, Thomas was putting the child down for a nap and accidentally placed the child in the oven instead of the crib. Prosecutor Baker said in a statement, "We appreciate all first responders who worked this scene and the prosecutors who went to the scene in order to issue these charges. We acknowledge the gruesome nature of this tragedy, and our hearts are weighted by the loss of this precious life. We trust the criminal justice system to respond appropriately to these awful circumstances. If convicted, she faces between 10 years and life in prison." Christina Corona, NTD News.
An 11-year-old arrested for bringing a gun to a Florida elementary school is now facing weapon possession and threat charges. NTD's Stephanie Sikal has the story.
Officials reported that an 11-year-old was apprehended and accused of bringing a firearm to a school in Jacksonville, Florida last week. According to an arrest report from the Jacksonville County Sheriff's Office, 3 students informed a teacher at Bell Clerk Elementary School that the 11-year-old had a 9mm handgun on February 5th. Witness told the teacher that the child was seen handling the gun in the restroom. After that, school personnel discovered the weapon during a search of the child's belongings. Authorities disclosed that a text message threatening violence sent from the child's phone the previous day was found by a Duval School Board police officer. The child was arrested and detained at the Duval Regional Juvenile Detention Center under suspicion of possessing a weapon on school premises and threatening violence. It remains uncertain whether the child has legal representation. Stephanie Sikal, NTD News.
One former LAPD officer will not face a retrial in the shooting death of a disabled man at a Costco in 2019. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the story.
Former police officer Salvador Alejandro Sanchez fatally shot 32-year-old Kenneth French, who had an intellectual disability, on June 14, 2019 at a Costco in Corona. Authorities reported that nonverbal French struck Sanchez from behind while Sanchez was waiting in a food sample line holding his 1.5-year-old son. Sanchez, who was off duty at the time, drew his weapon and shot French 4 times, as well as French's parents once each. French died from his wounds. The Corona PD had expressed their sympathy for all involved in the shooting.
This has been a traumatic few days for the Corona community. For all the parties and witnesses involved, I deeply sympathize with what you are going through. If you are one of those impacted, please talk to someone or seek professional help.
In January, a jury failed to reach a verdict on manslaughter and other charges, and Sanchez's attorney told the Press Enterprise that his client won't be retried by the state attorney general's office. Press Enterprise reported defense attorney Michael Schwartz said that jurors favored acquittal on the voluntary manslaughter charge and were deadlocked on the firearm assault counts that leaned more to acquittals. Schwartz said the case was dismissed on Friday. Christina Corona, NTD News, California.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. California lawmakers want stricter laws on autonomous cars. This comes after multiple reports of robo-taxi accidents. 2 states each reporting 1 case of disease likely caused by cats. Health officials say there is currently no health risk to the greater community. Historic golds for Team USA at the World Swimming Championships. We'll dive into the details of the stellar performance by the swimmers. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. California legislators and unions push for stricter laws after multiple cases of autonomous vehicle accidents. NTD's Stephanie Secal reports.
California lawmakers and labor unions are working together to push for new laws that would require human drivers in autonomous trucks. This comes after several accidents involving self-driving taxis from big companies like General Motors and Alphabet. One notable incident occurred during the Chinese New Year celebrations in San Francisco's Chinatown. An autonomous Waymo robo-taxi drove into a crowded intersection where people were setting off fireworks. This led to the car being attacked and set on fire by some in the crowd. On the same weekend, another Waymo car was seen blocking traffic, unable to move, with many people walking on the streets. These incidents raise concerns about the ability of self-driving cars to make safe decisions and the public's mixed feelings towards them. Now, state lawmakers want stricter rules to prevent such accidents in the future. They also want cities to have more control over permits for self-driving vehicles. Another proposed law would make it mandatory for heavy self-driving trucks to have a human driver on board. These measures aim to ensure safety and protect jobs. Despite California's reputation as a tech hub, there are concerns about the safety of autonomous vehicles. The bills have support from unions who argue that tech companies can't be trusted to regulate themselves. The proposed laws face challenges, but lawmakers are pushing forward, especially after recent accidents. Stephanie Secal, NTD News.
A human bubonic plague case identified in Oregon. The cause is likely from a pet cat. Alaska also reported its first Alaskapox death, also from a cat.
Oregon confirmed its first case of human bubonic plague in Deschutes County. Health officials say it likely came from a pet cat. In a statement, a health officer said all close contacts of the resident and their pet have been contacted and provided medication to prevent illness. People usually show symptoms 2 to 8 days after exposure to an infected animal or flea. These symptoms may include a sudden onset of fever, nausea, weakness, chills, muscle aches, and/or visibly swollen lymph nodes. If not diagnosed early, bubonic plague can be deadly. Fortunately, this case was identified and treated in the earlier stages, posing little risk to the community. There are no additional cases of the plague. Health officials say the plague is rare in Oregon, with the last case reported in 2015. Up north in Alaska, health officials say a cat is responsible for a different kind of virus, called the Alaskapox. According to a bulletin released last Friday, an elderly man who lived in Kenai Peninsula was hospitalized last November and died in late January. He was caring for a stray cat that hunted small animals regularly. The cat frequently scratched him, including his right underarm area where the Alaskapox lesion is. This is the first case where a person died from the Alaskapox virus. Health officials say the man was undergoing cancer treatment at the time, which suppressed his immune system. The combination likely contributed to his illness and death.
Long-lost treasures are returned to an African country. A U.S. museum gave them back after the items were stolen 150 years ago.
The Fowler Museum at the University of California, Los Angeles returned 7 royal artifacts from Ghana's ancient Asante Kingdom on February 8th. The artifacts were looted 150 years ago by British colonial forces. The artifacts include an elephant tail whisk, an ornamental chair made of wood, leather, and iron, 2 gold stool ornaments, a gold necklace, and 2 bracelets. They were looted from Ghana in the 19th century before being transferred to the museum in the 1960s.
I heard about artifacts to our forefathers and our fathers. They told us about the artifacts. And ever since they told us, as a kid, I had that vision that one day we should have all these artifacts back into our Asante Nation.
All 7 items are being returned unconditionally and permanently, though the kingdom allowed replicas to be made.
Museums love to shine light on beauty. At the Fowler Museum, we will no longer have these wonderful pieces on display. We are honored by your offer to have replicas made for us so that we will, however, have the opportunity to tell our visitors a better story.
It's the latest of a series of stolen treasured items being returned to several African countries. After decades of resistance from European and Western governments and museums, the efforts of African countries to retrieve stolen artifacts are paying off with the increasing return of treasured pieces.
Turning now to the world of sports, where history was made in Doha. Let's dive into the thrilling achievements of Hunter Armstrong and Curzan, securing a remarkable sweep of the 100-meter backstroke gold for the United States. NTD's Carlos Reyes has more on the story.
The United States is making waves, quite literally, with a sensational sweep of the 100-meter backstroke golds at the World Swimming Championships in Doha, marking a historic achievement not witnessed since 2013. Hunter Armstrong, standing tall at 6'8", secured his 3rd world medal in the event, upgrading from consecutive bronzes in the last 2 years. In a nail-biting finish, Armstrong edged out Spain's Hugo Gonzalez, his training partner at Cal, by a mere 0.02 of a second. The triumph signifies Armstrong's remarkable journey, going from 19th in the nation in 2019 to clinching silver at the Tokyo trials and now consistently gracing the podium at 3 consecutive Worlds. On the women's front, 19-year-old Curzan delivered a stellar performance, claiming her first individual world title in the 100-meter backstroke with a personal best of 58.29 seconds. The last time the U.S. saw such success in the 100-meter back was in 2013 when Missy Franklin and Matt Gravers took gold. Curzan's achievement is all the more remarkable considering her journey from being a runner-up in the 100-meter fly at the Tokyo trials at 16. As we look ahead to the Olympic trials in June, where the top 2 in each event secure a spot for Paris, the absence of 100-meter back world record holders Thomas Chacon and Kaylee McCown, along with U.S. sensations Ryan Murphy and Reagan Smith, sets the stage for intense competition. In other notable performances, South Korean Hwang Sun-woo claimed victory in the men's 200-meter freestyle, with American Luke Hobson securing his first individual world medal with a bronze. The absence of the fastest men in this Olympic cycle, David Popovici and Matthew Richards, added a layer of intrigue to the event. Meanwhile, Italian Simona Quadarella dominated the women's 1500-meter freestyle in the absence of legendary Katie Ledecky, who continues her focus on training at the University of Florida. Ledecky, undefeated in the event for an astonishing 13 years, owns the world record and secured her 5th world title just last year. The excitement doesn't stop there, folks. Stay tuned as the World Swimming Championships in Doha continue to unfold, promising more thrilling moments in the water on Wednesday. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. In more China news, a drop from a former Hunter Biden associate. President Biden reportedly met with the Chinese energy tycoon in Washington back in 2017. His firm reportedly paid Hunter millions of dollars. More details coming tonight at 9:30 on NTD's China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.